On Twitch, Stream Elements says, Play Compile is now live. Streaming software and game development, iDLE, Dynamic Story System, Part 2, Javascro, Unity C#.
Javascro.
Welcome to the Play Compile
That's what
live
it should
stream.
be called. It should be called Javascrodum because I hate JavaScript. That's not right. There we go. Alright, so because we are processing story files, let me just load the server a second. So our settings file is going to sit at server root, right, whatever the game is. So typically I have a system where I'll have a server root. We don't need that anymore. So my server root for this game at the moment is playcompile.uk/idle, but I might decide to move the game somewhere. So that's why we're always going to speak to the system controller to find out where the server root is. So I only need to change this once, and then I can upload the game anywhere and it'll still work. So we're going to server root story settings.json. So if we look at my server, we will see it here on the root. There it is, story settings.json. So because we're loading through a coroutine, then we're getting thread allocations from Unity. So what that means is when we enable the story system, actually maybe I won't do it like that. Actually, yeah, no, I just realized I'm being an idiot. Yeah, we won't do that. Okay. Yeah, this is the old way I used to do things. I used to make it so that when you run on enable, that like runs a function that you want to do, and then we enable the functions as we want them. It's much better to call public functions. Yeah, okay, so we'll just take that out altogether, and we'll have start story a public void, and then we'll just call it from another script, and then I don't need to worry about it. What I was going to do is I was going to be like, okay, so now how are we going to wait for the coroutine, which runs off its own timings, right? It gets its own thread allocation. How can we ensure that the settings file is loaded before we run the story code? But if we're calling it publicly from outside of itself, then we should be fine, because we have to go through like initialization anyway for the servers and everything, so nothing would happen until after that anyway. So let me just close some of these. I think we're done with the raw spawner. Okay, so I did a little bit of this last night, but not a lot. What I did is I set up a web request for load settings that's going to pull our settings file in, and it's going to store it in our public story settings. Sorry, it's not public, it's private, because it doesn't need to be public. So I just want to make sure that that is working as intended. So we're going to for each oh, it's a singular, isn't it? Yeah, it's a singular. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Right. Okay, so this is a little bit awkward. Right, so at the moment, let's load our story settings file so we can see what the hell we're doing. So if I just get the story settings file and download it to our downloads folder. Where is our downloads folder? Downloads. Where is it? I bet that's not going into downloads. Where the fuck is that going? Pardon my French. It's got it as... That's kind of awkward. Yeah, that's where I'm backing up my web server, I guess. Excuse me. Okay, that's fine, just for like what we're doing, it's fine. Okay, so there's our story settings file, right? So it's a JSON format, and at the moment all we have is our speakers, right? We have a speaker name and we have an avatar, which kind of tells us the ID of the character, right? Which is useful for like grabbing assets and things like that. So what I'll do to test it, because this is the very file that we should be loading, I'm just going to grab well, what I need to do is I need to add speakers in speakers. Actually, do I even need to do that if I'm now storing it in story settings? Because we'd still need to do an additional query on speaker name anywhere. Oh, I spelt Marielle wrong. Oh, that's really bad. Hang on. I need to fix that. Marielle's spelled wrong. There we go. That should have updated it on the server as well. I'll do it here as well. Whoop. So am I going to need to speakers? So in story settings we have a list of speakers, we have a list of poses, and speaker has a public string of name and a public string of avatar. Okay, so I need to make sure that this data came in correctly and that we know how to reference it. So I'm going to say for each speaker, get speaker in story settings, that's the class name. Oh, that's the opposite way of how I do it. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm tripping. That is the way I do it. Yeah, story settings. Dot speakers. There we go. We're going to just do a debug.log that's going to say I found and we're going to say get speaker dot name whose avatar is at, and then we're going to say get speaker dot avatar. There we go. Okay, and then we're just going to let it load, and we're going to let it do what it wants to do, and it should report back to us what was in that file. Okay, so let's run it. There we go. I found girl brush. I found Mambo, whose avatar is at AVA 20. So let's just make sure that lines up. It should do. Mambo is indeed at 20, and girl brush is at 21. She certainly is. Beautiful. So that's working perfectly. So now we have access to our speakers, and we can find out where their avatar is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function now within my script that will grab their asset. Will grab their ass. Let's grab ass. Why is that so funny to me? Because I'm a child. So we'll get it to return. I guess we want to get the URL. So we're going to make it a string function. Get ass. Grab's funnier though. No, but I always use. Let's be consistent. I know I want to be funny about it, but let's just do this properly. Get URL ass. Okay. Actually, I suppose it's more like asset URL, isn't it? Get asset URL. Okay, so the get asset URL is going to take a speaker type. Speaker. So we're going to give this function a speaker from our settings file, and then this function is going to return the URL for where the asset exists. So if we go onto my server, okay, we're going to find it in assets girls and the number of the ID of from the avatar, and then it's going to be girl and then the ID dot pack, and that's what we want this function to return. The reason we need this is whenever we want to bring a character into our story, we need to go and grab the asset and send that to our remote asset grabber, right, in my system, in my core system. So the first thing we're going to do is grab the avatar address. Get avatar URL equals speaker dot avatar. There we go. Also, just to stop it from complaining, we'll just construct the string now. So we'll call it asset URL equals null, and we'll say return asset URL. There we go. That makes that stop shouting at us. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to format that asset URL and construct the avatar URL and construct the asset URL. So if we just bring our settings file up a second. So our string will obviously look like this. So the first thing we want to do is replace this with nothing. And then we want to replace .png with nothing. So we're going to say string strip, we'll call it get ID. So string get ID equals get avatar URL dot replace. That's my, I didn't copy it. There we go. We want to replace that with nothing, and then get ID equals get ID, and we want to replace .png also with nothing. Okay, so now what we have is a string for the ID. Okay, that's what we're left with. So our asset URL now is pretty straightforward. Our asset URL is, and we can look on the server, it's assets girls girl plus get ID plus .pack, and now we return that as the asset URL. So now all we need to do is call this function, send it our speaker who's about to speak some dialogue. Yeah. And then that will return the URL for where the asset is stored, and then we can send that to our asset downloader and getter, and then that will handle the rest for us. It'll bring it into memory, it'll reserve some memory, it'll spawn the item wherever we tell it to spawn, etc, etc. Okay, so that's a beautiful function that we're going to need. We could test this now. So what we could do is for each speaker get speaker, we can say string get asset equals get asset URL, and give it the get speaker, and then instead of saying whose avatar is at, we can say whose asset is at get asset. So we can test to make sure that's working as well. Probably best to actually. Alright, so let's run it, make sure that's working correctly. And so now without having to add any extra fields or repeat ourselves in the setup process, right? We've got a foolproof system. We could have added server root to that as well. So yeah, sure enough, it knows Nozomi is at assets girls 006.pack. And if we check Nozomi's avatar, she'll be avatar 006. So that is correct. Where's Nozomi? Where is Nozomi? There she is, number 6. Yep. So that seems to be working perfectly. Okay. So that little block for testing is fine. We have a usable function there. Another thing we need to do is for set FOV, we need to add an adjustable background, because if we look at our story builder, where is my story builder? It's on my server, isn't it? So I could just do playcompile.uk idle editor.html. There we go. If we look at my story builder, we have a scene which has a background URL, so we can set a background here. So let's say, I don't know, church.png. Right, it's probably going to be in somewhere like backgrounds, church.png. And then so we need to display that background, obviously as a background. Now, because our FOV shifts depending on who's on stage, we need to adjust the background to ensure that the background renders correctly at the correct size and the correct position. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to create a quick 1920 by 1080 canvas in Photoshop. Beautiful. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw an inner rectangle at a different color. There we go. And now we can see the edge of our screen when we bring it into Unity. Sure. I'm going to save this in our project folder, our Unity project folder to be more precise. And we're just going to call this screen size.png. Okay, so we now have a screen size.png. So if we look at our background, let me just make that a different color, because we're using a clear black background for our camera right now. It's kind of difficult to tell what's working like that. So we'll just give this that'll do. Any color but what the default is, just so we can be sure that everything's working correctly. We could put an image in there if we wanted. It's fine. This is only a temporary placeholder anyway. So we want to create a quad. So there's our quad. This is going to be about our background for the stage. And this quad is going to need to be repositioned depending on which FOV the camera is set to. So let me just place it there for now. We need a material for said quad. So let's call this, what's this? Oh, that's a bug. I need to fix that at some point. I don't know where it's coming from. What is this? Is that the floor? What is that? I think it's just left over from somewhere. I have no idea what that is. Okay, this is going to be our background. So I'm actually just going to call it. We'll just call it background. We'll just call it background. That's fine. Okay, so background wants to be part of our story scene. I'm just going to put it there. And then it needs a material. So if I just go into my models, materials, because I am a material man and I sing stupid songs. Let's see. So we'll call this. I want to call it story background. Okay, so we now have a material called story background, which I'm going to assign to our mesh renderer on our quad. Because I am a material man. Okay, so now what we can do is we can take our story background, we can give it the albedo for screen size. There it is. We can see our white outline now. And so now we can sort of start to size this correctly. So the FOV that it's at right now is for the top FOV. So if we go into our story scene, we have a list of FOVs. So this is for center position. So when we have a central character in the middle, this FOV is for that character. So we obviously want the background to fit. I don't know. There's many ways we can do this. I shouldn't admit this out loud. I may be using AI. I may be generating some images using AI. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat there. And AI isn't exactly known for high resolutions right now. So if I had like an entire art studio behind me, let me check. No, it's just Miku. Then what I would do is I wouldn't do what I'm about to do. I wouldn't scale the background with the FOV because it's more realistic to allow the FOV, because we could do some transitions between these FOVs as well, which would be quite nice. And then the camera would have some like movement and animation and some zooming, and it would look quite nice. And if you're doing that, you don't want to resize the background as the FOV is shifting, because it would look weird, right? Like, why is it would be obvious that the background's static, and we should be zooming in and out on the background as well as everything else around us. So if I had an entire art team behind me, I would get that art team to render maybe like 4x size background from what we would normally need, so that way as we zoom in to just a small section of it for this FOV, we get like a nice, 1:1 pixel ratio render. But I'm not fucking Pixar, so I'll probably have some slightly lower res AI generated backgrounds or whatever. I'll do what I can. So in resizing the background, that allows me to use smaller backgrounds, and then those backgrounds will look better if we resize them to the FOV. But it probably means I won't be able to have like nice transitions between FOVs. Now when AI gets better in the future and I can render like fucking, I mean, I guess we could upscale those backgrounds and still do it. So we could zoom in and out on backgrounds. I don't know. I think I'll just resize the background. I think that makes the most sense for me. Okay, so I'm going to start by sizing this background. Oh, bollocks. Yeah, that's the thing. This is do I want the floor? I guess I don't want the floor. Or do I? It depends whether it's an indoor, and obviously I don't want the floor if it's an outdoor scene. Let me just turn the floor off for now, because we can't see what we're doing with the floor in the way. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, if I'm being honest. This is my first time doing anything like this, right? I'm using 2D backgrounds with 3D models. I mean, it's not the first time I've done that, but it's the first time I've built the system around that, if that makes sense. So I think it'll be fine. We're about to find out. Okay, so that clearly is the size we want our background at this FOV, or the position we want our background at this FOV. Right, so our character, let me just zoom in.
Canthea says, do what you got to do, you're only one person.
Yeah, I like to do the best that I can though. I like to do everything as best as I can. But no, I think this will be fine. I also just don't know what you know, what the result's going to look like. Okay, so the first thing I notice is our characters are casting shadows onto said background, but I also want this to be an unlit texture. There we go. Yeah, if we set it to unlit texture, not only does the background become brighter, so now we're doing like proper 2D, right? But now we lose those shadows. Yeah, I think those shadows would just look a little bit odd and it would kind of ruin the effect. Okay, because our characters are going to be using unlit anyway. So there you go. There's our unlit background that's set for this specific FOV. Good morning, by the way, Canthea. How are you? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is we need to set the background at different positions depending on which FOV mode that we're in. So we can see our FOVs here, right? Sure. Let's think about this. Which axis are we playing with? We're playing with the Z axis, right? So now what I'm actually going to do to make my life a little bit easier, the 0 seems a bit too close. Ooh, 1's way too far. 0.1's probably fine. I don't know, because we might want some parallaxing. So parallaxing is when you stack backgrounds in front of each other. So you might have like trees on a different layer and you might have something else on a different layer, and it just gives like depth. So I guess I should leave myself some room to play with. So let's try it at 0.3, and that gives me a little bit of room for parallaxing. If I want things to move behind the characters, right? I might want traffic. This might be a background of a cityscape or whatever, and I might want cars to move backwards and forwards while they're talking to each other, or anything like that, right? Just trying to think future-proof this, you know. Let's 0.5. All right, let's do it at 0.5. There we go. Okay. Right, so now what we can do, actually I need to keep that because that's for if I decide to remake the surfing game in Zenless Zone Zero, if I get time. That would be a lot of work. I don't know that I have time to do that. I'd like to do that, but I've got so many other things to do. That would be a lot of work. But yeah, the way I would do a surfing game is I would use something called so the first thing I would do is I would do what I did in Uma Musume, right? I would model the track, the surf track. I would model it using vertices and quads and various things, and I would use the curvature of the track as like a path, as a guide for the path. Then I'd have a custom controller that lets the player move left and right within that track, and I would have the camera follow the track around, right? In a racing game, because you'll notice in these racing games you're not you don't have a normal character controller. You can't just turn around 180 degrees, right? The game doesn't let you do that. And the reason why is because what it's really doing is you're not really turning yourself, maybe a little bit. What you're doing is you're moving left and right to avoid obstacles, and the game is doing the rest for you. It's a bit of an illusion, really. So that's how I would do it. I would have the player's forward momentum, just like in my Uma Musume mini game. My player's forward momentum would follow the curvature of the track, and then you would be allowed to move left and right within that limits. Within those limits, we have crash barriers on the left, crash barriers on the right. And then your character would just turn slightly as well as they're moving left and right, just to give it that little bit of better illusion effect, so it looks like you're actually turning when you're not really. And then I would have input influence, something like a variable like input influence. And input influence would allow us to turn influence up and down, which is saying how much is your character actually influencing the movement of the thing. Because you want to be able to adjust that in real time. So you know when you hit a shark in Zenless on Zero's surfing race thing, and it kind of carries you off and crashes you into the side, that's because they'll be turning, at that point they'll be turning input influence down to like 0, and then the shark will have its own like momentum that's like changing the left and right of your gameplay. And so that's how they do that, and then they'll slowly give you input influence back again so that you're able to like steer your character. And they'll do that for like skidding and stuff, right? So in racing games, they're using that input influence. You know, if you get too fast and suddenly your car's not turning quite as well as it would because you've started skidding or there's some resistance there, that's them turning input influence down. So it's kind of giving you less control over the character controller. And so that's how you would do something like that, I think. So as much as I want to make that, I just don't have the time. We'll do one day. 0.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some notes of where our backgrounds want to be. So we want FOV. We'll just do the indexes, right? So we've got FOV at index 0, FOV at index 1, FOV at index 2, and FOV at index 3. So this one is FOV at index 0, and our position wants to be 0.5. All right. So now what I can do is I can set the FOV to FOV1. So if we look in our table, actually it's on here, FOV1 is 32. So if I get the camera and I set the FOV to 32, that's what that looks like. So now what we can do is we can grab our background and we can figure out where it wants to go. So we need to move the background closer. Yeah, this might be I think I might have, yeah, we are getting closer, aren't we? Okay, I fucked that up then. Let's start again. The reason I fucked it up is, for some reason I thought we'd be moving the background further away, but we're not, we're moving it closer. So in that case, this one wants to be as far away from the player as we can get it. Not as we can get it, but like the furthest out of all of them, right? We should probably work backwards, to be honest. I think we should work backwards, because that's going to be the most dangerous one. Not that it's going to put us in hospital or anything. But at FOV 60, we're so far wide. Right? We're so far wide. And if we want to allow parallaxing, room for parallaxing, so we want it at 0.5. Yeah, this is why we work backwards, actually. That was my mistake. We should work backwards. So I'm going to make it big enough to fill the camera from the maximum FOV. And then we'll work backwards, so we'll move it back with each one. Okay, so we can see that our background is going to be at 0.5 now on FOV3. Then we want to go to FOV2. So FOV2 is 45. So let's put it at 45. And now grab our background. And we want to move it back. So it fills the screen. Something like that. Okay, so that is at 0.98. So I'm just going to copy that and put it there. Okay, beautiful. Our next one is at FOV 32, which looks like that. So let's get our background. And that wants to be about there. And the final one is FOV 0, which is 22, which looks like that. So our background wants to be there. Yeah, if I was a professional studio and I had the budget and whatever, I would probably leave the background here, but make it big enough to cover the biggest FOV. And then we would zoom in, the background would zoom in with us. Although I don't know if that's how it would work in real life. It depends whether you're using zoom or not, right? Because FOV kind of acts like zoom on a camera. And when you zoom on a camera, everything does get bigger, including the background, because you're like narrowing your field of view. If you were moving forwards and backwards, then the background would barely move, right? Because everything that's in the distance is still insanely far away from you, so it's got very little influence over it. But that's not what we're doing typically with FOVs. FOVs are more like zooms, so that's why I would probably render an oversized background at like 4K for the close-ups, and then render the bigger backgrounds, like, you know what I mean? And then when you zoom out, you get to see the whole view, just like a camera would when it was zooming in and out. And then you could have some nice transitions between FOVs. I suppose the downside of that as well, though, is a lot of these backgrounds are probably just going to be for one use and one use only, right? You're just going to have one character, FOV 0, and if you do that, you're wasting a lot of extra background that no one's ever going to see, right? If you get into a system where you're rendering background that covers a view that you're never going to see, well, that's a lot of like waste, right? So this keeps things nice and efficient as well and economical. Okay, so what we can do now is let's turn this into a custom class, in fact, because now we want to store two pieces of information, right? So let's store the FOVs themselves. Actually, we'll just put it there and then we can see them all. So the FOV for 0 is 22. Here it's 32. Here it's 45. And here it's 60. So now we have two pieces of information we want to store about our camera, right? We have the FOV and the background position. So we should set that up as a custom class. So let's do that. And it just keeps things nice, doesn't it? So we're going to do system serializable. Serializable. What the fuck are you doing? You stupid autocomplete. No, what are you doing? Oh my god, you stupid autocomplete. Oh my god. Okay, I'm having a terrible time right now. Let me just copy that one. I don't know why it's not letting me type that. It's kind of fucking weird. Right, so this is going to be camera settings. There we go. It lets me paste it, but it wouldn't let me type it for some fucking weird reason. Stupid Visual Studio. There we go. Now it's happy. Okay, so we're going to do a public integer of FOV val. FOV val. And we're going to do... Actually, that wants to be a list, though. Okay, we'll call it cam setting, and then we'll do a public float of background position. Okay, then what we can do is, instead of storing a list, Also, we don't need that. Instead of storing a list of FOVs, we can now store a list of cam setting. Call it cam settings. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make that private. And here's what we're going to do. Should we put it on camera? I think we should. That would be nice. That would be nice. Okay, on camera, let's make an object called settings. And then each setting is going to have its own camera setting script. So we know we've got 4 in total. So we've got FOV 0, 1, 2, and 3. We want each of these to have a cam setting script. Oh, it's not its own script though, is it? Yeah, I need to put that in a script if I'm going to do it this way, if I'm going to mono it out. Mono and mono. We'll do it mono and mono. Mono. Is this part of core? Is it part of UI? I guess it's kind of part of core, isn't it? Okay, so all we need to do is just grab that serialization. Let me just mute that for now because that's not going to work. Strip it out of here, save that, and we're going to create a new class called cam setting as an independent mono behavior. Okay. That way we can have game objects. I like to have things that I can change in the inspector. I think it's nicer. Except that's not a mono behavior. Oh dear Lord. Okay, now it is. Lovely. So now we've got a mono behavior of cam setting and we can add these to the game object. No, we can't. Why not? Unity. Unity. Why haven't you compiled that script, Unity? Did it save? Wait, it's complaining about something. What are you complaining about? The namespace cam setting could not be found. Yeah, I know, because I'm still working on it. Fucking hell. Ugh. Alright, it stopped flipping out now. Talk about over checking for things, but yeah, it does do that. It gets very grumpy. That's probably why we get along so well. Right, there we go. Now we've got a list of cam settings, which we're calling cam settings. I'd rather that class had a capital C because that's the way, I like it. It's just the way I do things. If it's, I don't know, I need to have a better system than that though. I have this weird thing where like if something's a child of something, I like it to have the class, I like to have the class name to have a capital, which is kind of inconsistent, but it's kind of consistent. It's hard to explain. It's because you address children rather than parents normally by their like instance names, and I like things to be consistent. So in order to have the lowercase starting letter on my children, I have to name the parents with a capital. So that's why I do that. I'm probably the only person in the world who does that. But I just like to... There, now my cam settings can be addressed with a small c, you see, through the story scene. Just, I don't know. It's the way I've always done it. I don't know if it's a good way to do it. It doesn't really matter, right? It's like as long as it works. But people have their own ways of doing things, I guess. Anyway, whatever, it's fine. Right, so we have Now we can say cam field of view is it's not FOV's a FOV index, it's now cam settings at FOV index dot FOV. Is it not called FOV? FOV value? Oh, hang on, I'm in the wrong there. FOV, wait, what? Oh, we didn't get its component. You have to get the component now. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll declare a private cam setting, which is like the current setting. So underneath camera, we're going to declare a camera setting of cam setting, right? And this will be the active camera setting. So that way, what we can do is as the setting is changed, we will set cam setting equals cam settings at FOV index. That way we know that the global cam setting is currently set to the correct setting for what we're currently using. And that's nice. Then we can say cam is field of view cam setting dot FOV value. Why is nothing working? Oh, because I didn't. Yes, I did. And also in here, I need to inherit all my cam settings. So I need to say for each transform child in, and I don't have a root, do I? Well, we could find it. We could say transform find camera settings and then we want to say cam settings add child get components cam setting. Beautiful. Okay, beautiful. So now we have inherited all of our camera settings and we're storing them in cam settings. Why is this not letting me access FOV value?
Since ads are about to run on Twitch, how about I tell you a joke?
I don't know.
Why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up.
Are we sure that wouldn't just be like that? Oh, because I already have. Oh, I know why. I accidentally made it cam setting dot cam setting. I gave it like a nest when it didn't need it. Wait, what is going on? I am so lost. Yeah, I know I'm still doing it. There we go. Now please update the inspector before I go insane. Thank you. Okay, let's get these values in. So FOV0 is 22 FOV with a position of 2.93. Shit, I'm on FOV1. Ah! Okay, 22, 2.93. We're having a great day. That's fine. 32 at 1.74. And then we want 45 at 0.98. And then we want 60 at 0.5. Give it a save. Boop. Okay, everything is not being grumpy. Everything looks good. And we now have our X position. What X position? That's always so funny to me. We've got our, it's not even an X position, it's a Z position. Okay, we have our Z position for the background. So the next thing we need to do is link the background as a transform so that we can move it. Without being able to do that, we're in trouble. So let's do a public transform. Background. Link it in the inspector. Booby-doo-boo, boo-boo. I got Uma Musume music in my head. There's got to be... Can I download that soundtrack, actually? That's what a stupid question. Someone's got to have it on YouTube, right? It might even be on IU torrents. Let me check. I love IU torrents. IU torrents. For music especially. Wait, that's not it. Are they hiding it? Oh, fuck. Don't do this to me. Where's my beautiful IU torrent site? It's not in my history, but I guess I haven't visited it since... That can't be true. Well, something like maybe all the web history got wiped since the last... IU tracker! That's it. IU tracker. The fuck is that saying? I need it in Chrome because fucking... And also, why doesn't Firefox have a built-in... Have a built-in translator? Sure, Captain Corpium. Why is it pink? Translator English. Fuck off. What happened to IU tracker? There it is. Okay, now. Oh, this will have all the fucking movies and stuff. No, I only want the music. I just want the soundtrack. I guess I want OST. Uma Musume OST. You've got to be fucking shitting me. That's season 3 of the anime. That is 1080p, so it's some kind of anime thing. You've got to have the soundtrack on here, surely. Party Dash, that's the Switch game. That's... Party Dash, that's the Switch game. That's 1080p, so it's a video. That's 720p, that's a video, and that's a video. Ah, you motherfuckers. I might have to get it off YouTube. Uma Musume OST. I knew it would be on YouTube, but it won't have all the tracks separated, so I can't just skip a track. I'm not using Spotify, that's gross. I'm not a Spotify motherfucker. 20GB FLAC, that's what I want. Maybe here, Nya. Oh yeah, Nya Torrents, this is a great website. This'll have it. Oh, is this all Uma Musume, a lossless audio? Look at all this! Holy shit, winning live. These must be all the winning live track. Oh, this is cool as fuck. Okay, let's see. I want the ones that I'm going to recognise. There's probably a load in here that I wouldn't recognise though, because we're still only just getting started, aren't we? So I guess I want winning live 1 then, probably. Like the first set of winning live songs. I bet that's what I want. Go on in, give me that. Hayaku. There's also a winning live one there. Yeah, there we go. Apparently that's a duplicate. Oh, give it to me, baby. Lossless as well. I love lossless. Okay, it's thinking about it. It should get it. 1.74 gig. Yeah, I watched some guy reacting to one of the songs from the game, but it was from the anime, and it was a much longer version, and it definitely was like a different recording of it. It was like that Make Debut song, but it was like longer and had extra bits in it, and it was definitely like a different recording than the one that's used in the game. And I watched this guy sort of react to that. You know, when you get these like musician, it was like drummer or something. Drummer reacts to this song, and someone in his Patreon asked for it. And as I was listening to it, I thought, oh, this is definitely a different version than what the game's using, and it's got extra bits in it as well. I thought, okay, I need to get some Uma Musume soundtrack. That would be cool. I can have it on because that'll be copyright free as well. Like, it's not gonna get me flagged, and it's pretty good stuff. It's pretty fun stuff. It's going to take an hour to download that. Are you kidding me? Winning Live Remix Album, Volume 1. That could be fun. Let's get that as well. And the magnet link almost looks like a horseshoe. Also, oh wait, that's got a big gap in it. Oh shit. How did that happen? Okay, our background's broken. Probably just need to make it a little bit wider and move it to the middle, and that should be okay for the rest of them, I think. Okay, that should be fine. Well, we can test this. Anyway, back to our code. So yeah, so we're linking the public transform for the background, which we did do. Okay, good. And then in our FOV shifter, when we call set FOV, which I guess we want to do in update. Were we doing that in update still? We don't have an update. Okay, let's just do a quick update. Void. Update. Set FOV. And then in set FOV, we now want to say field of view is that, and we want to say background dot transform dot local position equals new vector 3. Okay, to make life easier, we will do a vector 3 of OP for original position. OP equals background transform local position, and then we can say X wants to be OPX, Y wants to be OPY, and vector 3Z wants to be cam setting not that one, that one, background position. There we go. Boop. Let's test it. So now what we should get is, as we change the number of people on the stage, and that's going to trigger our FOV shifts, our background should line up with our FOVs now. So we'll test that. So there's our 6 people on 7 people on stage. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 7, isn't it? There's our 7 people scene where we have like the maximum number of people on stage. And now I just need to turn some of these off. So let's turn these 2 off. Boop. There we go. The background didn't even look like it moved. That's actually perfect. And then let's turn these 2 off. Boop. Look at that. And then these 2. Boop. So now our background perfectly lines up with every FOV shift, and the FOV shifts are automatic and it knows what to do. That is awesome. Really like that. Okay, beautiful. Okay. Okay, so how are we looking? What do we want next for our system? I think the next thing we need, so now we need to be able to bring our actors on the stage, right? Now the actors are brought in on the stage through our story block system, and we use, well, first of all we need to set up a scene block, right? Yeah, I think this is the first thing we need to do. So we want like a backgrounds church or whatever. So we need to be able to like play backgrounds, we need to be able to play music, we need to be able to play sound effects. We're going to set up some transitions. Oh, we still got a lot to do. We still got a lot to do. We also have to have like a smart system, right? And what I mean by that is, so what our story system is going to need to do, because we're pulling assets from the internet, our story system is going to need to first scan through the script and find out how many actors are involved. So we're going to need to separate out all of the formation blocks and find out which actors are being used throughout the script, and then we're going to need to preload all those actors so that we can get them in immediately, right? So we don't want to be loading actors in the middle of a story, because that would just ruin the flow of the whole thing. So the first thing our story system is going to have to actually do is find all of these formation blocks, find all the actors that are in the current scene, and then preload all of the actors and store them in memory. And then because we're loading backgrounds as well, we need to do a similar thing. So this story system is going to need to be incredibly smart about how it's doing memory management and asset loading. So essentially the first thing it's going to need to do is go and grab all of the asset references that are in this scene and then preload them all before it even starts doing anything else with scripts and things, so that the flow of the story doesn't get interrupted, right? But in typical programming fashion, that's going to need to be programmed last, because that we need all the other pieces of the jigsaw in the system before we can start varnishing each jigsaw piece, right? That's kind of like the jigsaw varnish part. But first we need to get the pieces in so that we can do that. So let's load our settings file. We don't have one in downloads, that's a shame. Let's put one in downloads. I think there'll be one in Zambi. Yeah, there's one in Zambi. Let's just stick that in downloads just to make life easier. There we go. Now we've got all our characters in. But that block needed to be... So this is typically how we would set up a story, right? We would create a scene. So this might say like fade in or something, right? For the fading in of the scene. We would set the background, we would set the music, we would set the sound effects, we would pick a transition if we want one, we might even want scene text to accompany it. And then what we would do is we would set some characters who are going to be talking to each other wherever we want them. So let's say we wanted those 3 characters in those slots there, right? And then the next thing we would do is finally we can get to having some dialogue. I just realized what might be a smart update to the system, although it might be getting a bit deep. I think we're starting to run up against like AI limitations though, as we've made changes to this. If I was smarter with JavaScript, which I'm not, I suck at JavaScript, but if I was smarter with JavaScript, you know what I might do here is rather than list every speaker in the game, we already know from this point here to this box here, we already know who's been brought into the scene. So really, this list of speakers should only let me choose between Alicia, Rain, and Kiki, because they're the only 3 girls who are in this scene. So I shouldn't be able to put Sheena in here, because Sheena hasn't been brought into the scene, so Sheena can't speak. So really, if I was smarter about it, I would make it so that these speakers only show who's been brought into the scene through the formation blocks. Now that also makes it easier to work with, right? Because like, I don't know, this game could have like 600 characters in it for all I know, and then I'm looking specifically for a specific character. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like the less junk you have to sift through, you know, when you're putting things together, obviously the easier your life's going to be. The more you have to sort of scroll through like endless lists. And the key question is it necessary, right? Like I say, does this make any logical sense? No, it doesn't. Sheena speaking right now makes no logical sense because she's not in the scene. She's in our game's database, sure. She's in our story settings, but she's not actually in the scene. So she can't say shit because her model wouldn't have been loaded. I'm not going to worry about it yet, though. I think I've got a lot. I've got a lot to deal with as it is, and I'm worried the more complicated we make things, the more we push our luck. You know, the more things I feel might start to fall apart. I felt like things were starting to fall apart yesterday when I was asking it to like auto load settings files and things. That would be a really cool feature though, and we have it backed up 1,000 times. I suppose there's no harm in asking it and seeing if it can pull it off. I'm going to export this story file. I assume that went into downloads. Yeah. And I'm going to show this to cursor. Okay. In this story file example, this setup shouldn't be possible. I have Sheena. Now, hang on, let's give her something to say. Hang on. Let's see if it can pull it off. There's no harm in asking, I guess. Okay, in this story file, this setup shouldn't be possible. I have Sheena speaking, however, Sheena hasn't been added into the scene through formation blocks. It would be awesome if instead of showing all speakers in the dialog block, we only show who is currently present in the current scene. Remember, characters are switched on and off. So this would need to be up to date. Based on the dialog block's current position in the script. Can we achieve this? Alright, let's see. The file was not found. Goddamn right it wasn't. What? How do you get the fucking... Oh, it's this one, isn't it? Maybe I should be put it there. You have not yet opened a folder. Okay. In this story file, this setup shouldn't be possible. I have Sheena speaking, however Sheena hasn't been added into the scene through formation blocks. It would be awesome if instead of showing all speakers in the dialog block, we only show who is currently present in the current scene. Remember, characters are switched on and off, so this would need to be up to date based on the dialog block's current position in the script. Can we achieve this? Yes, you can achieve this. The feature you want is to have the speaker drop down in each dialog block only show the characters who are currently present in the scene as determined by the most recent formation block above that dialog. Okay, but that's quite complicated. It's saying it can do it. It's not complicated if we're just switching them on that way. It literally just updated one block. Okay. Apparently we have that folder open twice for some reason. Okay, so let's repeat what we did. So we have a background URL, and we start a scene. Then we set our formation up. Actually, we fucked it up already. I need to load my settings file first. Why are we over here? I don't know. Right, story settings. So we start with a scene, and then we create a formation, and we want to bring Chloe, Sheena, and Izumi into the scene. Then we want to add a dialog box. No, it's not working. And our dialog block still shows all speakers. Accept file, save. Oh, I keep fucking this up. I keep forgetting that when I press refresh, I lose everything. That's why I wanted to load the settings file by itself, but it seemed to not be able to manage that. Scene. Formation. Sweetie, Sheena, and Rain. Add dialog block. Yeah, no, it's not working. Okay, when I test this, we still see all speakers in the dialog drop down. You're correct. Okay, we've got the remix things finished. Let's have a look at that. Winning live web flag. These must be the remixes. Freak. Output them to Apple lossless, I guess. That's AAC, I think, isn't it? I think AAC is Apple lossless. I don't know actually, is it? I think iTunes now can actually just play FLAC files directly. I think. Oh no, it's ALAC. That's what I want. ALAC. Okay. C dump stream safe. Probably not. Let's put them in C dump audio out. Yeah, we've got to make debut as track 5. But I think this one's a remix one. Do we load our settings? Yes, we did. Okay, let's try it. So we want a scene, we want a formation, we want to bring 3 girls in, Sweetie, Chloe, and Rain. And then we want to add a dialog box, Sweetie, Chloe, and Rain. Okay, but to really test this, I'm going now. Then we want to add a formation block and we switch Chloe off. I bet this part doesn't work because I don't think it fully understands. Chloe. Yeah, now only Chloe is in the scene. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, when it said based on the formation block above, I realized no, that's not going to work. So I think it misunderstands. So let's export this story so we can show it where it went wrong. I think it just needs to understand exactly what I want. I did say on off switch though. Okay. Okay, we can't rely on the latest formation block since they act like on off switches. In this example, Chloe leaves so we should be left with the other 2 girls. However, only Chloe is shown in the dialog box. We will need to track formation on off history. Is this possible? Okay. Great observation. You're correct. Formation blocks act as set the current state for all positions, not as incremental on-off switches. Each formation block defines exactly who is present at the moment. It still doesn't understand. No, they are on-off switches. But if you call the same block twice, it goes from on to off. Like, why is it struggling to understand that? Like, if I put Chloe from one slot to another slot, that would say we want to move Chloe. But if I turn Chloe in the same slot twice, it means she goes from on to off. That's how I want it to work, because then you just need one ring to rule them all. I still don't think it fully understands, though. Formation blocks act as set the current state for all positions, not as incremental on-off switches. I don't know what it means by incremental on-off switches though. Incremental. What does incremental even mean? Each formation block defines exactly who is present at the moment, and any character not listed is considered absent until re-added in a later formation. I think it's overthinking it. Like, no, each slot, if a slot is blank, it means nothing, no changes required. So they start off as empty, right? So if we don't put anyone into a block, then no one gets added to a block. But if we add somebody to a block then we're adding somebody to a block. If we change a person into another person in a block, then it means the person who was in one slot is now going to be swapped with another person. If we move a character from one block to another, it means that this is why I like this system, right? This system has the smallest number of inputs possible to have the maximum number of combinations of things that we can do. And we can move characters with it, we can swap characters with it, we can turn characters on with it, and we can turn characters off with it. And it's one input to rule them all. We just act it as an on-off toggle, right? We just need to know which slot is doing what at any given time. Let's clarify with your example. After the first formation present, Sweetie, Chloe, Rain. After the second formation present, Chloe. So the drop down for the first dialogue should show Sweetie, Chloe, Rain. The drop down for the second dialogue should show only Chloe. No, that's what's actually happening. If this is not happening, possible issues. Right. No. In my example, Chloe gets assigned to slot center. Is she center? Yeah. No, in my example, Chloe gets assigned to slot center, says she's leaving, and by reassigning her to center, she gets turned off since she's already on in that slot. So only Sweetie and Rain remain. Sweetie and Rain should remain. Thank you for clarifying. Your formation logic is if a character is assigned to a slot they already occupy, they are turned off, removed from the scene. Exactly what this means for the drop-down logic. You need to track the state of all slots as you process each formation block. If a character is assigned to a slot they already occupy, they are removed from the scene. For each dialogue block, you must replay all formation blocks up to that point to know who is present. True. Yes, true. Holy shit. Alright. It's cooking. It's cooking. Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems with AI is like getting it to understand what you mean. I'll admit this is a very specific. So it gave us a function, but we're not calling that function anywhere, are we? Get present speakers from block. Maybe it already, yeah, I think maybe it already had a function called that, but now it's changed the way it works. Let me test it. So we're loading settings. I mean, this isn't 100% necessary, but it would be a nice feature to have, because then it, again, right, it's going back to what we did yesterday, right? Like, the whole point of this system is to make it really quick and really easy for me to write story for games, and the more foolproof it can be, the better. And the fool is the human, right? Humans make errors. So by doing validity checks every step of the way, right? I think that's what that makes a really good system, right? If you can do validation checks every step of the way. And so that's why I think this is a great idea, right? We set up a scene. We set up sorry, wrong one. We set up a formation, and formation brings a character into the scene. So it makes sense that we should only show those characters for the dialogue block. It's working. It was working up to this point anyway. So now we have, that's perfect, because now we have Kiki, Nozomi, and Sweetie in the scene, and we can only have these three girls speak. I guess with every solution comes a new problem, though, because you might find yourself in a situation where you want, and then we'd have to create a new type of speaker, I guess, like off-screen speaker, you know. Yeah, we could. I guess we could do that. I mean, yeah. So you can see where things get weird, right? It's like, okay, maybe you find yourself in a situation where someone goes off scene and you still want them to sort of talk, you know what I mean? Oh, let me just dig through the trash and see if I can find this pair of slippers or whatever, right? And then they just kind of walk off the screen. But then the other girls are like, have you found it yet? Well, now you're in a situation where your dialogue, your story system can't have that character speak because you literally told them to go out of the scene. And so now your dialogue system's like, oh no, we can't have someone talking who's not in the scene. But for such weird edge cases, well, the thing is, this is where functions would come into play, right? This is why I've done like custom functions and things. I could just do, talk off screen function and create it as a function and then just hard code that bit in to get around it, right? There's always ways around things. But I think a robust system like this is amazing because Nozomi, I'm leaving now. And then our next dialogue block is we turn Nozomi off by calling her again in that block, and then we do right now it's saying there's nobody in the scene. It thinks nobody's in the scene. Does it think that okay, so now the character gets switched off by recalling them in their present slot. Correct. However, the other slots, when left blank, are also removed. Think of it as blank slot equals no change. To current formation. Thank you for clarifying the rule. Blank slot equals no change to current formation. Only if a slot is explicitly set to a character or cleared does the formation change. Yeah, because think about it. I'm making the system to be as user-friendly as possible. I don't want to have to repeat myself and say, Rain's in slot 2, Rain's still in slot 2, Rain's still in slot 2, Rain's still in slot 2. Like, if she's not going anywhere, then we say, okay, Rain's in slot 2, alright, let's have a conversation, right? And then, okay, Rain needs to leave. So I only want to trigger changes, right? You don't want to be repeating yourself over and over and over again. And also the way it set this up, the way I think it thought I wanted it to work, that would have been impossible anyway, because what we would have been doing is we would have been saying, Rain is in slot 2, now Rain leaves because we're recalling her in slot 2. Do you know what I mean? Now Rain shows up again, now Rain leaves, shows up again, leaves. She could only ever go from on to off to on to off to on to off. So why it thought, well, it doesn't think anything, it's an auto predict, isn't it? But, why anybody would think that that's the way I'd want it to work is kind of insane, because that wouldn't really make any sense. Alright, but this is now I think it's starting to understand what I want. I think we're making progress. So we start a scene, we start a formation, we bring Fiorella, we bring Chloe, we bring Kiki. Now we can have a conversation between Fiorella, Chloe, and Kiki. Perfect. That is so fucking cool. I think that's great. Because, like, now it's so easy to work with, right? It's like, oh, wow. And if I want somebody else to speak, well, I need to bring them in the scene first, and I didn't bring them in the scene. So that prompts me to be like, hey, you know, you can't have a conversation with anybody else because they're not in the scene. And so that's my way of knowing. Like, this almost kind of reflects the state in the game to me in the interface. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, this person isn't in the scene. You need to bring them in, you dumbass. And so that's fucking awesome. I love it. That's so cool. So Fiorella says I'm going now. So then we take Fiorella, we assign her again to the slot she's already in to switch her off, to say now you leave, right? And then our next dialogue, we should have only Chloe and Kiki remaining. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Perfect. That is so fucking cool. That is so cool. It's so nice because, like, I don't have to hunt. Because think about it, right? If this is like, this could be used in the future for a live service gacha game that I plan on maintaining. And so imagine starting with 21 characters. Imagine what it's like when it's Genshin Impact and it's 4 or 5 years old. How many fucking characters you've got. And imagine how difficult it would get if you didn't build a system that was like smart like this. Then you'd be hunting for characters like in your list. You'd be like, oh my god, I only want a conversation between Kiki and fucking Sylvia. And like, I've got to hunt all the way through this list, hunt all the way through the list again, hunt all, and every single block you'd be hunting through the list. But in this system, nope, you bring the characters in and then you can only have a conversation with those characters. And if you want a conversation with somebody else, you've got to bring them into the scene. It's awesome. I am so pleased with that. That is so good. Right, so this is the... Let me make sure it gets updated on the server as well. That is a really nice change. So I thought it would struggle with it, but the part, like, it didn't struggle with the code. It struggled to understand how I wanted my system to work. It sort of struggled to understand my logic, you know. But the reason I set it up like this is, if you think about, like I say, right, is I think I'm quite good at like understanding what is the minimum amount of friction. And so the reason I set it up like this, and it was like just immediately apparent to me how it should work.
Since ads are about to run on Twitch, how about I tell you a joke?
I'm talking.
I thought my wife was joking when she said she'd leave me if I didn't stop singing. I'm a believer. Then I saw her face.
Bugger off and stop interrupting me. But yeah, like, it was immediately apparent. I guess I'm good at skiving, right? I'm good at making things as quick and simple and easy as they can be. But this is my pet hate, right? You'll notice I get irritated easily, but I think it, for stuff like this, I think it really is a blessing, right? Because for me, it's so fucking intuitive in understanding what is the minimum amount of friction, like what is completely unnecessary and what is the least amount of friction. And so, like, immediately I knew exactly how this formation system should work, because I'm like, okay, we turn them on and off. Then we can, because with that system, we can move them, we can bring them in, we can bring them out, we can do whatever we want. And it's one input and one input only. And you don't have to repeat yourself. You turn them on when you want them on, you turn them off when you want them off. It's just like, it just seems like that's so intuitive to me. But it, like, I don't know, like, both in software, games, and like all over the place, I see systems all the time that are so fucking convoluted sometimes, and I think, why is this necessary? Like, I don't know, like, does nobody... I think people underestimate, like, especially in gaming as well, like, that extra friction. Like, think about an upgrade system, right? You're upgrading a weapon, right? Or you're upgrading a character in a game. You want that process to be the minimum number of clicks possible for the player. You want it to be as easy as possible for the player. Why? Because they're going to be doing it fucking dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds and hundreds of fucking times. So one extra click might seem like nothing when you're designing the system, because you're like, oh, it's only a click. But when you do it hundreds of times, you're literally getting the player to do hundreds of extra clicks. And that's the way to think about it. It's like, okay, If I add one extra click to this process that they're going to have to do hundreds of times, it's going to get frustrating because they have to do it hundreds of times. So you want the minimum amount of friction possible. Because when you're dealing with systems that are going to get used and used and used and used and used, obviously the more convoluted the process, that stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. So every fucking click counts, right? The minimum, the less friction you can have in a system when it comes to like input and user quality of life. It's gonna be the difference between like the world's most frustrating system or like the most beautiful system to work with ever. And I think people underestimate that. But for whatever reason, that stuff is like just so intuitive to me. But I also think that's why I'm a grumpy motherfucker, right? I think that's why I get so mad all the time when I see things that just don't make sense, and I'm like, oh, why the fuck do we have to jump through so many hoops just to upgrade a character? Why is this so fucking convoluted just to do whatever it is you're doing? And because I realize there's a much shorter path to the destination, and why couldn't the designers have done it that way instead? And so I get mad because I think, well, this should be better, right? It shouldn't be putting so much strain on its players or its users or whatever. But I guess maybe that's where one of my talents work, is I'm very good at like just understanding what would be the minimum steps required, do you know what I mean, to make a system do what you want it to do. And I always appreciate that above everything else. So yeah, I am super happy with that. Stuff like this makes me so happy. It really does. So even though I'm a grumpy motherfucker when things are, not optimal, when things are optimal, oh my god, I'm so happy. And I think that's why I'm so happy with this right now, because that one change solves so many problems. Think about how many problems that's solved. One little change is by looking at it and saying, well, hang on a minute. And it just feels intuitive to me by seeing the list of speakers. And this is where I think this is another reason why systems become like clunky and awkward, because a system designer starts with 21 characters and thinks, oh, it's not that bad to look through 21 characters. But you have to think ahead. You have to think, wait a minute, this is day one of testing and there's 21 characters to look through. What the hell might 4 years from now look like for someone who's using this system? They're going to be fucking buried in fucking names. So can't we help them out by showing them who should be present? And that just seems like the most intuitive thing in the world, right? Like, and also, but the best part of that is also it acts as a secondary validation check. It's like, wait, why can't I'm trying to think of it. Why can't Alicia say something right now? And it's obvious because Alicia's not in the fucking scene, right? Like, I need to bring her into the scene if I want her to say something. So not only does it like quality of life the fuck out of this whole thing and make it so I don't have to go hunting for names, but it also acts as a secondary validation check for me to say, wait a minute, Alicia's not in the scene. Shit, I forgot to bring her in. And now I know I need to bring Alicia into the scene. So yeah, I am so fucking happy with that. Love it. I just hope it works when like loading saved files and stuff like that. I guess we need to save it and test, right? So Fiorella says, this is so cool, I'm going now. Then Fiorella leaves. And then Chloe could say, glad she's gone. Stinky bitch. And so let's save that story, because I also need to test to make sure that if we load the story, so that's story output 3, because I'm not necessarily, oh, okay, the story's not loading. It all works perfectly in the live edit, in a live edit session. However, now when loading saved stories, we only get the scene block back. Wait, example fix? I don't like that. Are you not going to fix it for me, you motherfucker? It's saying do this. What? I don't know what it's saying. Yes, can you check it for me? Okay, I reviewed the code and applied the necessary fixes. Okay, let's see if that works. So our load story should now work. Why am I... Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Oh, our things done. Okay, so let's make a folder for this. This is Uma Musume remixes. Well, it's live 1 remixes. So we're going to copy that, put it in my music library. Soundtracks. Uma Musume. Uma Musume live remixes. Load iTunes. Add folder to library. This one. Added today. Stream save. What the fuck? I didn't add that today. Edit rules. Did it is in the last 1 day. There we go, that's what that should say. Girls Legend. Girls Legends. Okay, I need to make sure these are tagged correctly. Album. I'm never gonna know how to type that. Well, genre wants to be soundtrack. Artist is mixed. Winning live remix, volume 1. Unless I just put use album artist, it says various artists. Maybe I just say Uma Musume. Let's put Uma Musume in album artist, and then I can do smart playlist, album artist, Uma Musume. You can't hear that. Because I set, it's because I set iTunes to use a different. Let me go fix that. Is that in settings? Or is that in iTunes? That'll be in iTunes device manager one. I don't really care which thing it. Where the fuck is? How do you change the? It's in the audio mixer, isn't it? I think you can do it in the audio mixer directly now. You can set it in on a per app basis. Yeah, you can. There we go. I think maybe we need to reopen it for it to take effect. Is he the one downloaded? Not yet. This is pretty good. Oh, we got some reggae now. Almost. Yeah, this song would be amazing in reggae. It needs a bit more though, like it's a bit empty sounding now. I wish it had more of a. still not doing it. It's broken. It's broken everything. I need to break everything. Oh, I don't want crossfade. Which one's this one? This is cool because I can get all the additions. As new songs come out in the game, I can get them. This is a nice thing about being delayed, I suppose. There's no point in me getting them now because, I mean, I could probably get into them to be fair. I'll get the MP3s as well for the intros. Shit. Where did my working frog disappear? Why is it so broken? It's so broken right now. Story 4.
Welcome aboard on Global Astroliner.
Oh my god, it's destroyed my beautiful story editor. What do I do? This is the problem with AI. It's completely fucked my entire loading process. I don't actually know what this song is. We are dreaming. The Make Debut one was great. This one was great. I know this one. I only really know these two songs, to be honest. How do I bring up the console? What happens to the console? There it is. We got it back. We got it back. I didn't make any more updates to this now. Well, I was trying to find out if Does it still understand in a new dialogue works? Okay, it does. Okay, that's great. Do I know any of these other songs? What's this one? Not really. I haven't really watched the concerts, to be honest. Oh, I think I do know this one. Yeah, this one's quite good. Right, for a little while, I think I want these as my stream starts. I think the original one of this one was better than. This is kind of messy. It's a bit too chaotic. Yeah, it's a bit too chaotic for me. This one. Yeah, that was a bit chaotic, that one. Beyond the Future, which one was this one? This one's almost rap, isn't it? I mean, okay, so where the hell am I up to now? So as scary as that was, I think it was a worthwhile up there. But boy, did it break things for a while. I don't know, mostly, like, I think that remix is good and that remix is good, but the other ones are a bit messy. The normal versions are nearly done. I think that'll be better. Oh. I feel a lot better today than I did yesterday, because I definitely had, I felt under the weather yesterday. I wondered if maybe I got a tiny taste of the COVID. Possibly, I have no idea. But I do feel better today. But boy, my legs are really aching, and I shouldn't feel like I need a break. I've only done like 2 hours, but I kind of feel like I kind of feel like I need a little break. I need to take something as well. I have to replace my medication. Granddad's itchy pills. Yeah, my legs feel weird. Like almost cramped, which is strange. I don't know why. Okay, like, so what I was saying earlier about having to gather all the assets together. So we're going to need to like read ahead and get all these formation blocks and then figure out like which actors are going to need preloading into the scene. We're going to have to grab all the backgrounds, music, sound effects and preload all of those into the scene as well. I actually do think that we should start by doing that in Unity. Right, so we've got story output 5. I actually kind of wonder if I should create a folder for story, because otherwise this is already looking a bit messy, right? Because the website has all the HTML files in it. I feel like it gets a bit messy. So I think what I might do is add a folder on the server for story, and we'll put the editor and the settings file and all the story files in here. There we go. So let's teach Unity about that. I'm not sure what that's doing in there. Freaking auto complete overstepping its bounds. Where is my story settings URL formed? There it is. So now we just need to say story settings.json. So it should find story settings in story now. Same goes for our editor. We're going to need to go to story. Actually, this is the one that's on file. There we go. Yeah, so if we go into the story folder and we get that story that we just saved, which I think is 3. Oh, it's actually 5. So I'm just going to call this test.story. And what we'll typically do is we'll upload story files into this folder here. So the first thing we're going to need is a public string of story file. I don't even think it should work like that. I think we should call a public function of story file. So I don't know, do we need it? We can need it. Private string of story file. So here we have a start story. So we want to take story file as a string when we call this function. And so what this will do is it'll tell us test.story. Let's say we're going to say test.story. So we're going to call the function now start story test story at the end of loading settings. And so the first thing we want to do is we're going to want a coroutine that's like a load story that's going to work similar to this. So I'm just going to use that as a template. So load story will have access to the story file. Let's just call it file. So we set the story file to file, and then we're going to do start coroutine load story. And so load story will load whatever this is set to as its story file. So we want server root story plus story file. We should already have system and camera set, so we shouldn't need that. And then we're going to do a URL web request, and we're going to stream in the text from the story file. And we don't want to end up in an infinite loop, so we don't want to call ourselves like over and over and over again. Okay, so in the same way that we created a custom class for story settings, we're going to need to create a custom class for story files. The difference here is that we're not using JSON parsing because we're not actually saving our stories in JSON. We're using our own custom format, right? Like this. Okay, I really do not feel very well right now. I think I'm going to need to end the stream. I am sorry, but I am feeling like crap. So I'm going to need to go sort myself out. But that is going to be next, so... Alright, I'm going to need to end the stream there. But yeah, it's coming along great. We're looking good. I don't know if I caught something or what, but I'm going to need to go sort myself out now. So I will hopefully be back on later. Hopefully I'll be feeling a bit better. Alright, I will see you later. Bye.